Look how it turned out. All right. Did we start?
We're going to start now. We're rolling right into another episode. 2021. Welcome back to the Nameless Recovery Show. My esteemed, famed, and honorable guest, Jared Flash Gordon.
I don't know about esteemed or famed, but
you're pretty famous.
I guess I'll take honorable.
You have a Wikipedia page.
I'm not famous. I like to say I'm popular.
Popular.
Yeah, because I'm not really famous.
No, people don't stop you?
If you're like a diehard MMA fan, you probably know me, but if you're just like...
I mentioned your name to a couple people. They're like, why are you going to Florida? I'm going to go interview this guy, Flash Gordon. They're like, the fighter? I was like, yeah. They're like, fuck yeah.
Were they in recovery?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a junkie or if you're a serious MMA fan, then you probably know me.
Rad. Well, that's why we're talking, because you're a professional athlete. You're in recovery, and I think the world needs to hear more about recovery and addiction from people that aren't necessarily holding signs by the freeway ramp.
All right.
Well, so you're born in Queens, New York.
I was born in Manhattan.
Born in Manhattan. Wikipedia's wrong.
Yeah, I guess. I was born in Manhattan. I lived in Nassau County, which is on Long Island. Moved to Queens when I was 13 or 14.
Oh, okay. You were actually already getting into your...
Yeah.
Getting into your life, fitting into your skin.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
13, 14, by that age, you're already fighting.
On the street. I wasn't... like competitively fighting yet.
And you started competitively fighting when you were 16, 17?
17. I had my first amateur fight.
And what was in your repertoire then? Was it striking? Were you Muay Thai?
No, I was just more of a grappler.
More of a grappler.
Yeah, I mean, I knew how to like
jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I knew how to like throw my hands, or had an idea of how to throw my hands, but I wasn't a good striker at that point. I'm still not really.
According to Strap.
Yeah. Well, if Jason knew me then, he would be like, this guy's got to get a new job.
We're going to spin the camera on Strap.
This is Coach Strout. Coach Coach Jason Strout.
I didn't even look at him.
Coach Strout.
Make judgment off of.
He's been with me through a lot of my ups and downs, my best ups and downs.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure to hang out with you guys and eat some sushi, man, last night and talk shit and exchange stories. Yeah.
Same. Thank you.
So you're a teenager, you're living in New York, you're fighting on the street. What made you decide, like, man, I want to compete. Like, this is something I want to follow. Do you remember any kind of a turning point?
Yeah, I mean, so for me it was I had a knack. So I wrestled and I boxed a little bit as a kid.
In high school?
Yeah, I wrestled. Well, I wrestled in middle school, but all my friends were high school wrestlers.
Gotcha.
And I moved to Queens, and there was no wrestling program like in the city at that point. It was all like city sports. Basketball, handball was huge at my school, like literal handball.
And you're like, I'm not gonna fucking play.
And I didn't play those sports, but I was at that point in my life, I wasn't really into athletics. I was always athletic as a kid, but at that point I was already into my drug addiction, and I thought I was like a hustler or whatever I thought, and I was like the girls, partying, that's what I was into at that point, and making money. And I had like this, I remember there were times where I would be like going to high school in Queens especially, and I used to have to take the subway. I'd have to walk from my house, get on the subway, and go to high school, which was like a 15-minute subway ride away from home.
Sure.
So, I'm on the train with all these business people. They're all going to Manhattan, all these other kids. And so at any point in time, I could just say, I'm not going to school today, and just get off at whatever stop and go do what I want. But I always I would have my headphones on, and I always had this feeling inside of me like, this isn't it. Like, high school, like, I got to do this because... like, I have to do it because of my parents, and that's like what you do when you're that age. You go to high school, right? And you graduate, so maybe you can go to college or do something else. But I always had this feeling like there's something bigger, or there's another way for me to do this. And I always thought to myself, I'm not going to college. Like, I didn't want to go to college. I thought it was a waste of time, for me at least. And I was using that feeling and energy in the wrong way. I was like, I know what I have to do. I have to sell drugs. So I can make a bunch
Fighting
of...
wasn't on the horizon.
No, not yet. So I can make a bunch of money and open up a business. Like, that's what I'm like, I know...
You can be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, like, I got to make money. And, like, I did anything to make money. I would go, like, on vacations with my parents to, like, Caribbean islands, and I would bring back, like, 50 cartons of cigarettes. And I would be getting packed cigarettes for, like, $2 each, and I would be selling them for $8. I would bring, like, a bag. In my book bag would be full of packed cigarettes, and I'd be in school hustling cigarettes, Lucy's, everything. I was selling weed. By the time I was 13, I was selling cocaine. And I had this, like, grand, you know, I was, like, watching Scarface. I thought I was going to be, like, you know, and, you know, like, that's just what my mind frame was at the time. And then I graduated high school somehow with the, like, by the skin of my... I graduated with a 65.1, which is, like, in New York, that's, like, 0.1 away from failing.
Gotcha.
So I graduated with, like, a D-, from high school. And I actually got accepted to a college to do... I was working in a pharmacy, actually. I also worked in a pharmacy, and I was stealing everything. Xanax, Vicodin, I was stealing everything, and I was selling it.
I wish we were neighbors, though.
Yeah. And, you know, I wasn't into painkillers at the time, but I was taking Xanax and, like, Klonopins, and I was selling them. And I had, like, in my senior year of high school, I drank, like, a bunch of alcohol. So to get back to your first question, and I got, like, super fat. I was, like, funneling beer, you know, high school shit. And I graduated, and I was going into summer, and I remember being like, geez, I got fat. Like, I got to do something. And at the time, the UFC was blowing up, the Ultimate Fighter show.
Yeah.
And any chance I got to watch MMA, I was watching it. Pride, the Ultimate Fighter, Stephan Bonner versus Forrest Griffin. And I remember watching that fight and being like, oh my God. And then I remember Frankie Edgar, who was my favorite fighter, was fighting, and he fought Tyson Griffin. It was his first UFC fight, and he won. And I remember thinking, like, geez, the guy's like, I'm like his size, like 5'6", and I remember thinking, like, he was such an underdog. And I remember I was like, this guy's gonna be the UFC champion. And that was in 2006 or 2007, and then he went to become the champion. And my friend was like, we should go to a boxing gym, and I'm like, yeah. And at the time, I wanted to work out to lose this weight that I had gained, but I didn't want to go to a gym. I didn't want to lift weights. Fighting was something that I wanted to do. I went to a Church Street boxing gym with my friend, which was all the way downtown in Manhattan. It took like 45 minutes to an hour to get there on the subway. And I went there, I checked it out, but I was like, this is too far for me. I can't go all the way down here every day. So I came home, and I stumbled out of the subway. I wasn't drunk or anything, but I came out of the subway, and I remember walking, like, and I looked up, and there it was, Combined Martial Arts, right on Steinway Street in Astoria, Queens, which is where I grew up. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know it was there. I walked in, and the guy at the front desk, Steve Katz, he owned the gym, and it was Combined Martial Arts, home with the Rhino fight team. And he was like, yeah, Frankie Edgar started here. And I was like, what? Joined right away. I had my first jiu-jitsu class like that following Monday. I threw up everywhere because I was exhausted. I remember eating like a bunch of tuna fish and eggs. And I was like, I got to put protein in my body. And I went and I did the class. I threw up everywhere. And I was hooked. I was 17.
And that's when you're 17.
So I was like, this is it. Like, and I remember like wrestling with this kid who was like, had already been training for a while, and I was like kicking his ass.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, and he was like way bigger than me.
He's like, you're really good at this.
And he's like, wow, man, like you wrestled, you're a wrestler? And I'm like, I wrestled, but like I'm not I'm not a wrestler, like by any means. I wasn't a wrestler at that point. And that was it. I remember like, wow, like I think I could be good at this.
I'm a high school student with poor grades.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And then I trained for 4 months every day. I was just only doing boxing and jiu-jitsu because I was taking like classes.
Yeah.
And they had a team, and I was training with the fighters. And
I failed high school, by the way, so please no judgment. You made it through at least.
No one I know really passed. So Steve Katz was like, "You want to fight? I get you a fight." And this was 4 months into training. And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'll fight." And I remember thinking like, "All right, this is like going to be like a bucket list thing." Like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And I remember I went and I fought, and I was 17.
It'd be like a bucket list thing.
Yeah, and my parents had to sign a waiver because I was underage.
Yeah.
And I fought a kid that was 26 or 27. And I remember being like, "Holy shit, this kid's going to kick my ass." And I went in there and I whipped his ass. I remember like hitting him, and his eye just like swelled up.
Boxing? He was striking?
No, it was MMA.
Okay. Anything.
Yeah. It was in the Rahway Convention Center across the street from the Rahway Penitentiary, which is in New Jersey. So right over the bridge at the time, MMA was illegal in New York, so we had to travel to PA or Jersey to fight. It was early days.
That's crazy.
And I remember like I was wearing my Rhino fight team sweater. I was with like 6 guys that were my teammates. We were all fighting the same night. We all won. And I remember thinking like, and then I remember, at the time I was still like being a degenerate. I was like selling drugs and like smoking weed. And I remember like getting in my car after the fight and like driving down the Grand Central Parkway to my friend's house. And I was like, I'm the fucking man. Like, and I remember thinking like, I'm going to go smoke a bunch of, like we went and like smoked weed. And it was like I thought I was like the coolest person around. And, but I was hooked.
Yeah.
And MMA was like something that like it saved my life for sure. MMA at the time, until I found and God, and it led me to God, and that's how it started for me, fighting.
It's fucking crazy. Let's shift gears really fast. How old were you when you got into drugs and drinking? Young?
So I went to sleepaway camp when I was a young kid, and it was like I think it was my second year there. I had gotten sexually assaulted by a male counselor, like full-on rape. And I came home that summer, and like I remember being like going back to school in like September, because that's when school starts in New York. And I remember sitting there and like having flashbacks of, taking it from this man. And I like created this like thing in my head where I would like if it came into my head, I would picture a guillotine or someone with like a big sword chopping my head off, and poof, the thought of that incident would go away. And anytime I thought about it, I would just like close my eyes really hard and like.
I bet that piece of shit, if he's still alive, prays you never find him.
Oh, he's in prison, actually, the guy. Yeah. So I created this like mechanism to make the thought go away. So I stuffed all the feelings.
Yeah. It's
and then
trauma.
within a month of that,
find a way to move on.
within a month of coming home, me and my brother and a friend of mine found some pot in my mother's and father's closet. They had like a big walk-in closet. Sure. I remember always going in there like, this like smells like smoke in here. And then like we found this I guess a makeup case, and it had like rolling papers and a pipe and like roach clips and like joints and weed and I remember being like, oh shit, like got some weed. And we stole some weed, and I remember going into like a bush like in like a reservoir behind like my house and smoking for the first time and getting high and being like, I remember thinking to myself like, this is it. I found it. Like, this is what I'm gonna do with my life. I'm gonna do drugs.
I'm gonna get fucked up.
Yeah. And then I remember thinking like, holy shit, like and at that point I'd already like taken sips of like beer and alcohol, but then that's when I started like,
sure.
And I was 9 years old.
You're 9 years old.
9 years old, yeah.
So first of all, I'm horribly, horribly sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. Don't be sorry.
It shouldn't happen to children.
No. It should not. But I believe at this point in my life, like, that this was supposed to happen to me for some stupid, disgusting reason. And it's like, it wasn't supposed to happen to me, but it had to happen this way for me to get to where I am so I can help other people, you know?
I wholeheartedly believe in silver linings, and it would be hard to imagine your life turning out the way it has, as successful as you are, without going through all the pain and suffering you've been through.
Yeah, unfortunately. For me, that's how everything goes. No matter what the process or situation is, like, there's going to be a lot of suffering or struggle to get to point B.
You're like the phoenix from the ashes, man.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So not only are you a fucking bona fide badass, and you have a serious drug problem, right? Mm-hmm. So now you're getting into fighting. When did you go pro? So was that 17? Is that officially a professional fight?
No, that was amateur.
That was amateur. When did you go pro?
So I had 8 amateur fights. And then I went pro when I was 22.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah. And at that point, I was already fully addicted to opiates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started doing opiates when I was 18. You know, Vicodin, Percocet, then found Oxys. And then, you know, you take them.
Yeah.
Take 4 of them, take 10 of them. No, that's not working. Now I got to sniff them. Now I got to smoke them. Now I got to shoot them. And then I went to rehab. So I went pro. I'm sorry, let me start over. At that point, so I was selling lots of pills. I don't want to glorify that, but I had tons of pills. I'd given a bunch to my best friend to sell. The next day, well, he didn't wake up the next day. He overdosed in his sleep. And then that was October 12th, 2010. I went nuts, drug-wise, using. I decided, all right, I got to get out of this. My now fiance at the time we were dating broke up with me. I was like, all right, I got to get out of New York, or at least get out of the city. I met this kid who introduced me to a gym, which was in Ithaca, New York, which is like all the way upstate New York, 4.5 hours away from home. And I kicked cold turkey. Terrible. And I was training while kicking. I trained there for a month, and I got offered my pro debut on 4-day notice. I took it, went pro, I won, beat the guy up, finished the guy rear naked choke in the second round, and that was the start of my pro career. That night in the casino, we were in Resorts Casino in Atlantic City. I was like, well, there's only one way to celebrate.
Yeah.
And that's to shoot Opanas. So I remember thinking man, I won this fight. Once again, I'm a badass.
It's kind of
I gotta get high.
An affirmation of what happened the first amateur fight.
Pretty much. Same thing, just harder drug. And then I remember waking up the next day and, I've been clean for a month and a half, and I woke up and I was like, oh, I need more opiates. Right away that urge was there again, cravings. Mm-hmm. And I remember using again, and I remember I needed my friend to drive home because I was so nauseous, and I was just throwing up out of the window, on my way out of the AC, and I was like, let's go home. And that was in the start of another run, and I got pretty bad after that. That's when I went to my first treatment down here in Florida, actually. I had good insurance at the time under my father's business. They sent me to a treatment center down here. I made 17 days in, and I did something, I did something terrible there. So on Sundays, it was a free day at the treatment center, and they took over a resort with a pool and a basketball court, and it was do what you want on Sundays. And we had phones in our apartment, landlines. My friend, who I ran around Queens with in high school, moved to Miami. So I called him. I'm like, yo, come up here and pick me up. all right. So I like managed to somehow escape the rehab. I hopped over a fence with barbed wire, and I tore a huge hole in my shorts, and so my ass is hanging out. But I get in my friend's car. We drive down to Miami. So I'm telling all the kids in treatment, yo, I'm like gonna escape today. Give me some money, and I'll buy some pills for everyone. So I go. I remember I got 17 OxyContins. I come back. 6 hours later, I come back to the treatment center. I hop the fence. I get in. No one sees me, idiots, and I'm giving out pills to everyone in the treatment center. Right away, everyone knows. All the staff members know these kids are high. Everyone's fucking high.
Everybody's nodding out.
And like I'm not a moron. So in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do mine. I'll let everyone do theirs first. And they all got caught, and I didn't. And then that night I got high, and by the next day I was like, fuck this, I'm leaving. And I just AMA'd. So I came home, went on a run, went to treatment for 6 months to a therapeutic community. Actually I was in a homeless shelter, which was also a treatment center. They kicked me out for fighting. I came home. My parents were like, you can't stay here. You got to go to, it's either you get out or you go to treatment. So I went to a long-term treatment called Samaritan Village, which really helped me, upstate New York in Ellenville, New York. I was there for 6 months. It was like a place, like 90% of the people, they were mandated by the courts.
Yeah, it's what we were talking about last night.
Yes.
Yeah, a longer-term program.
Right. So I was there voluntarily. I did 6 months, came home, and then that's when I met Coach Strout, Jason. And I did well. I had my second pro fight with Jason. I knocked the guy out. I had a couple more. Then I went to Mexico. I fought in a tournament, which I won the whole thing. It was 8 Mexicans versus 8 Americans. I won the whole thing. I fought 4 times in a month. The grand prize was $100,000. I won the whole thing, and I never got paid.
No.
Yeah, they stiffed me on the 100 G's. Yeah. So.
How can they get away with that?
Well, it was Mexico, and it was
Touché.
like cartel stuff, cartel money. So what was I gonna do? Like send someone down there to knock on doors? Like.
Yeah.
So.
God.
I tore my shoulder labrum though in one of the fights there. So I had to have surgery like 2 months after I got back. Surgery caused me to relapse. I wasn't working the program at this point. No sponsor, no God. Just the only thing that was keeping me from using was MMA and having like something to live for. So I go back to treatment after going on a run. I have about 1.5 years clean. I compile some more wins. I'm 9-0 as a professional MMA fighter. I got a chance to fight for a big regional promotion called Cage Fury Fighting Championships. Mm-hmm. I fought for them about 9 times. I was winning the fight. I was going to be the champion. I would have been 10-0 as a professional, and I was going to get a UFC contract.
Right.
I'm winning the fight. Second or third round, I get kneed in the face. Second round, I get kneed in the face, breaks my orbital, cuts my nose, cuts the bridge of my eye. I go into the second, between the second and the third round. They look at me. They let me go back into the third round. I fight the whole third round. I go back to the corner. My face is now swollen to nothing.
I'm going to cut up to a picture of that.
Yeah, no problem. I have a good picture. They stopped the fight.
Yeah, as they should have.
Yeah, so I remember like going to the hospital, and the commissioner, Nick Lembo, who I'm friends with to this day, was like, Jared, look, if we don't stop this fight, you'll never fight again. You might not even ever fight again now. But if we let you go into that fourth round, I'm sorry. He was like, there's no way you would have came back from that. So I go to the hospital. I remember being on the gurney. I'm still wearing my fight shorts. I'm covered head to toe in blood. And I remember the nurse. She goes, oh, it's one of those MMA fighters. I look at her and I'm like, this is my life,
Yeah.
and you're treating me like I'm an animal or something. And I remember looking at her and being like, with my face out here, and she was like, she didn't want to look at me. Like, yeah, you fucking bitch. So I go. They have to take X-rays of my head right away. The doctor comes in the room and says, look, the way your nerve of your eye is sitting between the fractures, it looks like you're probably lost your vision, and maybe you're blind in your right eye. You're probably never going to fight again. So in my head, I'm like, what do you mean? I was just winning that fight. I was supposed to win the belt, be 10-0 as a pro, and be going to UFC. And he's like, the doctor was like, yeah, you might have to, like, you're probably done. He's like, the only way we'll be able to tell if you're blind is if the swelling goes down and your eye opens up and you can see, or we pry your eye open right now. So I was like, pry that bitch open. And he was like, we're going to have to give you a shot of morphine to do that. My parents are with me bedside. They're crying because they're looking at me like I look like an alien, you know.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's a recovering heroin addict. Like, what do you mean? Or, you know, he's an opiate addict. Like, and the doctors were like, well, the only way that we can do surgery and for healing to occur is to control his pain levels, so his muscles relax, so we can do surgery, because we got to do surgery on Monday. This is Saturday night. It's like, we need all of, like, the contraction and of your muscles to go down. We have to give him painkillers no matter what.
Of all the doctors that have written 30 scripts and rotten events where they gave people pain pills that you didn't need, this was not it. You needed, I mean,
Yeah.
that's medically super appropriate.
Exactly. I had
crap.
to have the medication. So my parents were like, all right, give it to him. And I remember
How long did you
that.
use?
I'm sorry?
How long did you use after that day?
That was May, December, 6 months.
Fuck.
But,
We're gonna give him one shot of morphine 6 months later.
yeah. So they gave me a shot of morphine, and I remember, like, looking at the needle, and I was like, fuck yeah. And, you know, they had already have an IV in my arm, and I remember, and just that warm feeling came over me, and just, like, pins and needles in my head, and on the bottom of my feet, and in my quads, just, like, stabbing feeling. And I'm like, yes. And that blank came over me, and I was like, all right, I'll pry my eye open. And they needed 2 doctors, one doctor for my lower eyelid and the other one. And I remember feeling them going like this because they couldn't get to, like, my eyelid because it was so swollen. And I remember, like, finally seeing, like, light. And they were like, okay, move your eye in this direction, move it in this direction, now this way, down to the right, down, straight down to the left. Because they wanted to see that the muscles of my eye that control your eye movement weren't damaged. He's like, can you see? I was like, I can see everything. He's like, how's the color? I'm like, everything looks normal. He's like, the way the X-ray. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. Usually, everything's gone. Like, the way the nerve is sitting in there, everything should be or partially blind or impaired. So I remember. So, you know, now I'm in a head trauma unit because I had a massive concussion also. And I remember it felt like I had, like, an anvil sitting on my head. It was like the most pain. And they doused me with everything. They gave me Valium. They gave me Dilaudid. They gave me, because, like, they needed all of the muscles and everything and they needed me to sleep because I can't just be awake all night, like, tossing and turning in pain. So I've passed out, and I remember waking up and being in, like, the most unbelievable pain that I've ever experienced. And I've been injured quite a few times.
You fight for a living.
Yeah, so I remember just screaming for the nurse. Like, I couldn't even look for, like, that button thing. And I was just like, please, help me. And she came in, she was like, you all right? I'm like, I'm dying. And they hit me again. And every 4 hours for the next 6 days, they gave me a shot of Dilaudid. And then I had surgery on Monday, a cranium surgery from a cranial surgeon. And he put a plate in my face that sits like this. So it's my medial my medial orbital and my orbital floor, like a L-shaped plate that sits like this.
They did a great job, man, because you look fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't look like you don't fight, but
So like,
I mean, you don't look like disfigured.
the
Like,
recovery sucked, man. It was so bad.
only
Yeah.
imagine
Yeah.
how long before your face like started to. How long till you look like yourself again?
My eye was closed for like 2 months.
Oh god.
I had double vision for like 7 months because the nerves and all the muscles around my eye were so inflamed. I had to see like specialists that most people will never have to see in their lives. Like, so, you know, you go to an ophthalmologist, you go to an optometrist. I had to see doctors that deal with the muscles of the eye.
Wow.
Like crazy. I had to wear prism glasses because I had like triple vision for months. And the prism glasses would, you know, bring it all to one. It was the most miserable time in my life. I had the same surgery on my other eye, but it wasn't even close to as bad.
And you're just
And that was nothing.
You're just using through the entire recovery.
So I came home
physical
from the hospital. They gave me a script to go home with. I took the script because I was dying.
Yeah.
I was leaking out of my eye like pus and blood for days, and it took forever for my eye to open. I was in so much pain. I had to lay. I laid in my room in the dark for about like a week and a half because any light, I couldn't pick my head up. It was miserable. And I stayed home for like 7 weeks and just ate pizza and just stayed home. And I went to doctors. And then it was like August. So the fight was May 21st, I think, 2015.
Wow.
Around August comes, 6-7 weeks later, whatever it was, or July. It was the dead of the summer in New York, in Queens. It's like 100% humidity. It was like 100 degrees out. I remember, and I'm sitting on my couch, and all I could hear is like, my parents went to our summer home, hours away. No one was in the house. And I just remember hearing like the AC like clinking, like clink, 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 clink. And I'm just sitting there on the couch like the TV, there's no TV on. And I just remember there's nothing but air conditioning noise. And I remember just thinking, like, fuck this. I'm going to fucking get high.
Yeah.
Called a guy that I haven't called in months. He answered on the second ring. Yeah, I'll be right there. Within 6 minutes, I had 3 bundles of heroin in my hand.
And that's the white powder stuff?
Yeah, we don't.
No black tar.
Yeah, that black tar's. You know,
That's
it's the West Coast. That's not real heroin.
So,
Just
so
joking.
and then you get sober in December.
So I went on the run of my life, and now I'm like shooting cocaine and heroin. I'm speedballing. I'm in. I'm like going nuts. I'm doing anything I can to get $1. Robbing drug dealers, robbing my parents, robbing my friends, robbing anything. Selling this, selling that.
Selling your shit.
Selling my soul. Yeah. The only thing I didn't do, which I thought about doing, was selling my ass. You know. Luckily didn't have to get to that point, which I could have gotten there fast. I panhandled. You know, I've done all the homeless shelters. I've been in.
Panhandling? Did you fly sign?
I would do stupid shit like park my car next to like a gas station, like down the road. Like, oh, I ran out of gas. People be like, oh, here's $50. I'm like, oh, thanks, idiot. You know, meanwhile I have like a half tank of gas, and I would just. But I did come to the point where I was like on the street, like, hey, like, can I, please? I'm hungry. $5. Like, Thanksgiving came. I wasn't allowed home, so I'm like, you know, couch surfing. I'm sleeping on the street. I'm sleeping in, you know, hotels, motels if I had the money. Yeah. Thanksgiving comes, passes. I'm doing my thing. December comes, and I hit a huge score.
And just to be clear, at this time, like you're just right. This is the darkness before the dawn. This is right before you get sober. You're not really working. You're not really training. You're not fighting.
Nothing. No.
You're just fucking.
Yeah, I'm just
on it.
I'm just, you know, yeah,
just fucking nose
going nuts. Yeah, and I'm trying to die. I'm like loading the spoon up. I'm like not to glorify it, but I was buying cocaine from this Greek kid, and it was like the best cocaine I've ever had in my life. And every time I would shoot it, I would have a seizure. And like if I put like a little too much on the spoon, I would cold cook it, and I would just go into full blown like can't, like shaking seizures. And I remember if I put like too little, and I would like wait for the seizure to come. If I didn't have a seizure, I was like, fuck, like I wasted that shot, you know?
Wow, that's the new bar.
And
that's the new low water mark. If I don't seize,
and I was like, this is amazing. And so I had like robbed this piece of shit for like $6,000. So I'm like, oh great, I have like money for the next couple of weeks. And it was Christmas time, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna get a hotel. I'm gonna buy a bunch of cocaine and heroin, and I'm gonna fucking kill myself. And I remember like putting it on the spoon, like, all right, like 10 bags has to be enough to die. With the cocaine, the seizure cocaine. And I would bang it, and I would fucking seize out, and I would be like, I would come to it and be like, what? I'm still alive. This is amazing. And so Christmas came. I'm in a hotel, like losing my mind, because now I'm up for like 6 days. I got kicked out of another hotel because I was making too much noise and like doing crazy shit. And I remember looking out of like the window of the first hotel I was in, and there was a cop car, NYPD cop car, sitting on the corner, and I'm like, fuck, they're here for me. I know they're here for me. It's like snowing. I remember walking outside, I don't even have a t-shirt on, and it's like snowing, and they're looking at me like as I approach the window, and I'm like, and they roll the window down, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, I know you guys are here for me. And they were like, what? And they were like, I was like, dude, I'm in the hotel right there. I saw it. I know you're here for me. And the guy was like, we're not here for you. Now please get away from us. I'm like, come on, like I know you're here. I know you're here for me. And they were like, look, we're not here for you. Go back in the hotel and don't come back outside. Now they must have been staking someone else out. So I'm like, oh fuck. So I go back inside and I'm like, what the fuck am I thinking? Like every now and then I had glimpses of like, okay, I need to chill, come down, go to sleep. And then the next day I remember getting kicked out. They're like, you gotta get the fuck out of the hotel now, like the staff members. So I go to another hotel.
Well, the cops probably said something in front desk. Like,
probably, yeah. There's a guy upstairs.
Like, hey, by the way, yeah, you,
yeah. That guy's getting high for sure. So Christmas Eve comes, my parents, everyone's looking for me. My friend actually, asshole, he just committed suicide on the 16th of December, was like searching for me, like high and low, this kid searching. Jason was searching for me, my parents, all my family and friends. But I was shutting like, I thought they were tracking me through my phone. So I remember like shutting my, like find my iPhone off and all that. Like as if, I don't think anyone was even really doing that. It was just my paranoid mind.
I was super paranoid too.
But like, you know, how that goes. So I get to the next hotel. I'm loaded with drugs. I go absolutely bonkers. I thought, so this is how my story ended. I was in my hotel and I'm like going like this. I'm like, I'm seeing like people, like little, I swear, I thought there was like midget cops in my room with me.
Bro,
I keep seeing shadows and I'm going like this. I'm like,
it's mini law enforcement.
I literally, all the dressers, I'm like, oh, he went into the dresser. I'm kicking the dresser cabinets in. Literally every dresser. I know, flipping the dresser, flip the whole bed. There's needles, spoons, bags of coke and heroin everywhere, empty bags, needle caps, everything. I run out of the room, down a stairwell, into the, like 11 floors, into the lobby. I'm carrying clothes and heroin in my hand because I was like, I gotta get my heroin and the needles. I got all my clothes. I'm like, okay, I got my cash. I'm running outside. I'm like just in a pair of jeans, no socks, no shirt. I'm sweating profusely. And I have like needles and heroin and clothes in my hand. And the people at the front desk are like, and there's a woman and a man there like checking in, and they're looking at me like frightened. Yeah. It's Christmas Eve, so like no one was really out, like everyone was home. And I'm just And they're like, is everything all right? I'm like, and then I come to, I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. I'm just gonna go back upstairs. I go back upstairs, I start banging away again, and then all of a sudden, knock, knock, knock. And I'm like, that's the cops. And then they take me outside, and they cuff me. They take me outside, they sit me down against the Best Western right across the street from Queensbridge, which is the largest housing projects in Queens. I'm sitting there on the floor, no socks. I remember looking at my feet, and it's like snowing, but the floor is wet, and I'm steaming. I'm steaming because I'm so hyped up, and it's snowing. I'm sweating profusely, and they're looking at me like, the ambulance comes, and I overdose in the ambulance. And I remember before I overdosed, I was like, they were like, look, I'm like, where's my drugs? They're like, we're taking that. And I'm like, and they're like, they're like, but we're not going to bring you to jail. We're going to cut you loose in the hospital. And then that's all I remember. And I wake up a day and a half later, Christmas Day. It's the 26th. I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, fuck, I'm so dope sick. Because I slept for like 18 hours, so now I'm sick. I ripped the IV out of my arm. I grabbed my shit. I have no shoes. My feet, I remember my feet were hurting so bad because I was running up and down the stairwell in the Best Western.
Hey, the Invisible Bureau of Investigation is scary.
Yes, and
They're
my
scary.
feet were killing me. And I remember thinking, why are my feet hurting so bad? I never felt anything like it. Like my feet were sore to like, as if someone beat them with a baseball bat. And I get in a cab and I go home on Christmas Day, and my dad opens the door and he's like, I could see his eyes, like, he just starts crying, and they were like, you can't be here.
Yeah.
And I was like, just give me a pair of sneakers and a sweater. I'm going to detox right now. And at the time, I had my sponsor Tommy, who was trying to help me. I was in and out of the rooms, in and out of rehabs, and he just wouldn't give up on me. This guy. So when I call him, he's like, go to Flushing Detox right now. But first, I have to get high because I'm dope sick. So the same guy, hey, yeah, I'll be right there. 4 minutes later, I'm high. So amazing how they're so on it, those guys, you know? No matter what time or how long it's been since I've spoke to them. It could be a year, it could be a day. Hey, oh, fuck, this guy's good. I get high, go to detox. The last day I used was December 26, 2015. My clean date, my first day without using, is the 27th of December, 2015. I've been sober ever since.
Yeah, 5 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's not really the time so much as it is, a whole entire life change. Congratulations on a newer, better version of your life.
Thank you.
Wild. What a wild ride. So you get sober, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a fucking professional athlete.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do that.
I have great pictures for you too, if you want to post them.
Yeah.
So I went into rehab, 163 pounds of skin and bones.
Right.
I come out of rehab like 48 days later after like whatever it was, 12 days of detox and like 34 days of treatment or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
And I am fat as shit. 210 pounds of just fat and bones.
210?
Yeah, I gained that because I wasn't eating anything for weeks.
Yeah.
So I was just, and like as soon as my body started getting nutrients again, it was just like, we need all of this. So like it didn't burn anything, it just took it all in as like fat stores.
Yeah.
And the place that I went to treatment was it's called Creedmoor, and they had an alcohol substance abuse center, treatment center, state-run facility. The food was like the food you get in jail. The facilities were disgusting. There was literally like shit on the walls in the bathroom, like peanut butter on the walls. Like people would just like put peanut butter on the walls. And I remember being in the shower, like in the hot shower, like, oh, this feels so good. And there was like cigarette butts on the floor in the shower, like pubes and nasty shit. And that place saved my life. And I found God in there. And I remember my sponsor was like, I'm like, what do I do? And he was like, pray. Pray and read the doctor's opinion. Which I already read like a million times by that point, but I had to reread it, obviously. And I remember it snowed like 5 feet. Do you remember that winter? It was January something. I got in there. Yeah, it was like January 10th, and I remember like being in the rehab and just seeing this snow like pile up, and I was like, oh fuck, I'm really stuck here now. And but I remember thinking like it was so warm in there, and I was like, just like, oh, I feel so safe. And you know, I was with people that I'd never met, and everyone, this is also like a mandated facility, so everyone's a criminal, but I was like right where I had to be at that moment, you know. And you know, I was talking to my sponsor like like any chance I can get while I was there, and I came out and I dove right into AA head first, and got back to fighting slowly. I was so weak. I destroyed my body. I remember trying to do I couldn't even do a set of like 20 push-ups. I couldn't do more than 5 pull-ups. I was so weak, and I was fat as crap, so like everything just felt so hard. I remember doing pull-ups like like as if I had like a 60-pound weight vest on right now, you know. And it took me a while, and I got Jason let me back in the gym, and I remember on the way from detox to the treatment, I was in a van. I got my phone back for a little bit. I called Jason, and he was like, look, I'm happy that you're getting help, but this is the last time that, you know, you can come back to the gym. You get clean now, you come back to the gym if you ever. And I remember thinking at that time, I'm never going to fuck up because of what he just said. And that was like one of the reasons why I stayed sober at first. Like, I don't want to fuck this up. And that was February. In July, I fought for that title again, the CFFC title. They gave me a shot at the belt again. So the guy that I lost to won the belt. He lost it to another guy, and I fought that guy. No, I'm sorry. They vacated the title. I fought one guy, knocked him out in the first round. Then I took a short notice fight at 55, like a couple weeks after that. I won that fight. Then I fought that guy, Bill Algeo, who's now in the UFC as well. We're friends now, and he was talking so much shit to me before that fight. And I went in there and I beat him up, and I won the fight, and Dana White was there that night.
So that was your comeback fight, and you won.
No, this was my third fight back.
Oh, okay.
So I won the title. I took a fight at a higher weight class, short notice, won that fight. Then I went back to defend my title against Bill, and I won. Dana White was there that night. I was the main event, and they signed me that night to UFC, and I've been in UFC ever since.
Congratulations.
And you know, it's been quite a road since then as well. But you know, I don't have to use drugs anymore. So
I can only imagine how much, besides how rich and full your life is now, I can only imagine what a devastatingly good fighter you are now. So who's this guy you're fighting next? You're fighting a guy, you got a fight coming up real soon. You're training.
Yeah, Danny Chavez. He actually trains here in Miami.
You guys know each other?
No, I've never met him. We know of each other, obviously, but tough guy, dangerous in some aspects. Stylistically, I think it's a great matchup for me. And I truly believe I'm the better fighter, the more well-rounded fighter. And I'm going to go in there, whip some ass, get the W, and keep on to the next one.
How many fights, and this is featherweight.
Featherweight.
You're featherweight, that's where you fight. And How many fights are you out from taking the championship?
You never know.
You never
'Cause
know.
anything could happen.
Moving target.
Yeah, so there's so many variables that lead you there or could lead you somewhere else.
Sure.
So I really couldn't give you. I would like to say like in 2 years I'll be fighting for the belt.
I'll be following with a lot of excitement, man. Wanted to ask you too about the love of your life. First of all, we were.
Who's this?
It's Pan.
Pan to that one, yeah. There he is. Look at that guy, stud.
No, your fiance, you're engaged to be married, and you guys have known each other, you two, since you were first grade, since you were 5 or 6 years old, and she's been on the American Ninja, right? So
American Ninja Warrior, yes.
American Ninja Warrior. We were just watching her, dude. She's a badass too.
Yeah, we just watched her. She did. I hope she's happy. I think she's going to be happy with her performance today. She's been training her. She's got quite the story as well. She's not a recovering addict. She's not an addict or alcoholic.
And she's practically a fucking saint for putting up with you all these years.
Oh yes. She's been through a lot. We had a crazy year this past year. She had a miscarriage. We lost.
Deeply.
We were trying to have a child, and so we lost the baby. Then we got into a bad accident in Utah. We were in Utah on vacation in her RV. We got into a bad car accident, and she hurt her back really bad. She's been for the last since August. She's been on the comeback from that injury, and she competed today. I'm super proud of her. She's a badass, and she definitely keeps me in check. She's the boss, and if it wasn't for her, though, I don't know what I'd be doing. She was always that thing too that I clinged to. We started dating when we were 19, and like she was always the one. And I've dated other girls between, and like they were never. It just never felt right. Like she was always. That's my sweetheart, Christina.
It's awesome, man. I'm really happy for you too, and look forward to seeing the fight. So, those of you that are watching this, I'm gonna post all the deets in the description. Make sure you watch this guy fight. It's coming up here just in a few days. Amazing story of transformation. I guess I only really got one more question for you.
All right.
So, in this country right now, there's about 500 people like you and me dying every day from drugs and alcohol. Out of the million or so people every year that don't get help, about 400,000 of them don't get help because they're scared, get this, of what somebody fucking thinks. They're scared of stigma. What would you say to somebody who wants to get help, knows their life is on a hard course for self-destruction, but they're scared? What would you say?
I would say you got to do it for yourself first off, and that you got to really want to help yourself to get better, but that the stigma is bullshit. And if you had cancer, would you say, I'm not gonna go get the help? You would run to get help for treatment, and this is a disease, and you can turn your story into a inspiration for someone else. So it's not only is it you're helping yourself, but now you have the chance to help countless other souls. You have to just make that jump, and the naysayers can go F themselves, and you're not alone. Also, there's hundreds of people that are in sobriety that have had probably worse stories than yours. There's always someone that has a more embarrassing, scarier, more unbelievable story than yours. So you're not unique, first off, and you're no different than anyone else that has reached out for help. So I think that's the bottom line, really.
It's good shit, man. Wishing you the best of fortune on your journey, your
Thank you.
upcoming
You
fight,
too.
man. I'll be watching with tons of excitement, man. I'll be rooting you on from the sidelines.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time,
Appreciate
man.
it. Thanks for having me.